Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss how the events of the past year have shown Conservative MPs to be so taken in by their own Brexit rhetoric that they think they can get all the benefits of policy decisions with none of the costs. And it's led them to a point where they're making impossible demands even of themselves. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So it's been quite a marvel to me that the Conservatives have not at least tried to win the next election. Yes, they were up against it after 13 years of destroying our national infrastructure, but the Conservatives have many default advantages. They've got the backing of the bulk of the mainstream media. Even the Times, which is supposedly the respectable Tory paper, hailed the budget this week as a tax-cutting one, when they know full well that taxes are actually going up overall. They're also seen as the natural party of government, even though they might actually be the only major political party in the UK who doesn't actually want to do anything in government other than dismantling the government. They're usually more disciplined than Labour as well, spending far less time on internal squabbles. Instead, they traditionally have their arguments behind closed doors, presenting a united front to the nation. Obviously, this does not describe the Conservatives right now. And I'm not entirely sure whether this is just because they've been in power for too long or because there's now a critical mass of both the membership and parliamentary party who are not really Conservatives at all. You know, the UKIP infiltrators, they've got no interest in party unity, only bending them to their ideological will. But the Conservatives could have chosen to fight the election. When they made Sunak leader, they had someone who was plausible to the public. If they pulled together, they could have staged a fight. So why didn't they? It can't be that they simply didn't want to win. They always want to win. So the likely explanation is they simply don't understand how. In 2016, the public were hit with a barrage of cakeism. Brexit was presented in a nutshell as being able to get all of the benefits of EU membership with none of the trade-offs. And this wasn't implied. It was explicitly stated by numerous Brexit campaigners. Now, it's easy to imagine that those pushing Brexit were all evil geniuses, twirling their moustaches in private as they counted their profits from selling out the country. But that is only the case for some. Many others simply didn't understand the first thing about Brexit. There are so many occasions when it becomes clear that a politician just fundamentally doesn't understand what they're arguing for. You know, we see it with the calls for a reduction in migration again this week. Conservatives just have it in their heads that immigration's bad, but why? Oh, because we don't have room. Japan's got a way higher population density and they manage. Oh, because it puts pressure on public services. No, it doesn't. Migrant workers pay a higher rate of tax than British workers. In fact, immigrants collectively pay far more into the system than they take out. If we were to substantially reduce immigration, that is what would put pressure on public services. In addition, many of the jobs in public services are filled by migrant workers in health and social care, most especially. You know, it's a policy based on ignorance. Well, the same applies to Brexit. It wasn't just the public, but MPs themselves who didn't understand really very much about the EU or Brexit. Many still don't. Some have wised up, but are now trapped. But Brexit did something else to the Conservative Party. It got them to believe in the cakeism they pushed onto the public. That you can have all of the benefits without the trade-offs. Now, the way a normal government and parliament will work is when they're debating policies to pursue, they base it on the best return for the costs. So if you want to cut taxes, well, how are you going to manage with lower tax receipts? Do we have enough? Is it because we've got an excess of tax receipts we can afford to pay for all the public services we needed and we can afford the tax cut? Or are you going to cut public spending? What are you going to do? Where's your trade-off? If you want to invest in a major infrastructure project, how is it going to be funded? Whatever policy you pursue has costs. Those costs might be financial, they might be political, they might be both, but you have to factor them in. But such was this power of the Brexit cakeism belief that I think Tory MPs have now degenerated to a sort of childlike state where they simply want the thing, but they don't understand what they need to do for it. Conservative MPs want tax cuts, but they don't want spending cuts needed to pay for it. Give us tax cuts without spending cuts. And the Chancellor's there going, well, what? They want a reduction in migration, but they won't accept it means lower productivity, worse public services, lower tax receipts, and further economic decline. Asylum's a complete joke. You get the impression that they want to stop all asylum claims to the UK, but they won't face up to the international isolation that this would result in. They claim that they want to lead the world, yet they're shutting themselves off from it. It's no wonder that so many Tory MPs have been drawn to Brexit. It's the ultimate example of a promise that you can have everything you want without having to pay for it. And it has made the Conservative Party completely incapable of doing anything. And this is because all policies have trade-offs. All of them have downsides, all have costs, which they feel they do not have to accept. In fact, more than that, they simply refuse to accept responsibility. The Tory press were again giving Suella Braverman a platform. The front page of both the Daily Mail and the Daily Express today leading with the fact that she's attacking the latest net migration figures. Well, who is it that decides migration? It's the Home Office. Was she the Home Secretary? Now, I am going to point something out here. She's not actually the Home Secretary responsible for these figures. It's not quite true because these are the 2022 figures. We're getting them at the end of 2023 because it takes a very long time to get accurate data. She was the Home Secretary for the last few months of 2022, couldn't reasonably have changed things that quickly. So she was essentially using Priti Patel's system. However, Braverman will have been responsible for this year's figures when we get them next year. So was she saying, oh, yeah, these figures are absolute disgrace. I quite agree, they're absolutely disgraceful. But don't worry, because I was the Home Secretary who changed things and the next year's figures are going to look amazing. No, she didn't say anything like that. She just whined about how high net migration is, as if she were a GB News gobshite who hadn't actually been in charge of the Home Office. So even when they're in power, they just want to blame others when they're doing nothing at all and calling it hard work. You know, that doesn't yield the results that they want. And if this is someone who was at the very top of government, how much less realistic do we suppose the backbenchers are? The ones who can spend 100% of their time demanding things without ever having to work out how it's to be done. Oh, that's someone else's problem. But Boris Johnson was like that. He ran the government. His attitude was, I'm just going to announce a policy, and it's up to these very clever civil servants to work out how to do it in reality. You know, I discussed in my video on immigration yesterday, the government could easily reduce immigration figures if it wanted. It's got control over it all. You know, and it's like almost all of those figures are related to immigration authorised by the Home Office. Very little is down to asylum, whether via small boats or not. The 90% of these figures are down to visas issued by the Home Office. You know, they could just issue fewer visas. But they know in private that this damages the economy. Being anti-immigration really works better in opposition than government. And the same applies to all their demands. Conservative MPs right now are behaving like protesters on the street, demanding certain outcomes without having to provide the fully costed plan needed to implement it. You know, but members of the public have a right to say, look, we want this thing or we want that thing. MPs on the government benches have a duty to work out ways to achieve it in the interest of the country. But where's the plan for anything? You know, they want tax cuts. Where's the plan? They want the economy to grow. Where's the plan? They want to level up. Some of them want to level up. Where's the plan? They want to reduce immigration. Where's the plan? When was the last time we heard a minister talking about the costs, the trade-offs of implementing a policy that their party approves on? When was the last time you heard a minister saying, right, we're going to do this thing. There are downsides. We've tried to counter them, but overall we think it's a net benefit for these reasons. They're happy to talk about the costs, both real and imagined, to things they don't want to do. Oh, we can't raise public sector pay because that would be inflationary. Oh, so isn't excessive corporate dividends inflationary then? Oh, and what about these tax cuts? Isn't that inflationary then? They're basically like children at this point. It's no wonder they won't focus on what's necessary to make them more competitive for the election. They don't really know. All they know is that slashing taxes just before an election will con some people, even if they'd have to jack them right back up again immediately afterwards, like they did in 1992. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.